Well, hello. We're back because today is the Way of the Blade. The Way of the Blade Part 4, mind you. And today it's all about honing your edge. Do you really know how to make your knife sharp? Do you even know why it's important to have a sharp knife? Have you ever thought about sharpening a pair of scissors? Because that's edgy, and nobody ever thinks about sharpening their sad, lonely, depressed scissors. Seriously, why don't you sharpen your scissors? Today we're going to talk about all kinds of practical reasons why you need a knife sharpener in your life. There's probably going to be some uncomfortable amount of spiritual and physical lessons that we talk about today that some of you just aren't going to be rather fond of. And because of that, I just want you to know, too bad, so sad. I've waited my whole lifetime to talk knife time. So these videos are probably going to be outrageously long. Not this one, because it's just knife sharpening, right? How long could it take? Well, here's the bad news. A long, stinking time. Way long time. Sometimes you're going to go to sharpen a knife, and you're going to realize that knife was ground terribly. And by that I mean the person who had it last, a machine, or a man, or a woman, or a child, or a dog, or some creature that buried it in the forest might have destroyed the edge on that knife. And because of that, it don't cut for garbage. I guess, and remember, that same thing we talked about before, a dull knife is a dangerous knife. And knives get dull. So do scissors. So do machetes. Because an axe and a machete and everything that ever is getting edgy in the world should be used with regularity. Excuse me. I hope you know that edgy things need to be tended to. And because of that, if you neglect them, they will cost you dearly. And because it shouldn't cost you so much. If you would just invest a little bit in a good knife sharpener, it will change your life. There's all kinds of different systems out there. There's all kinds of stones. Actually, stones, people. Because forever, since the creation of the knife, or bladed instruments, probably given to us by a bunch of fallen angel watchers that just ruined mankind horribly, but we'll get there another time. If you get to your knives, you need a rock or something very, very hard in order to sharpen them. You know, iron sharpens iron. See, there's the first one. We'll get there. Stones have different kinds of hardnesses and grits out there. And because of that, some of them actually will sharpen your knife. Others will totally not do anything helpful for your knife. They'll just be a rock that will ruin your day by damaging your edge. And you need your edge. Never lose your edge. And if you do, you can find it again with a good rock. Well, the rocks I like best are not really found in rivers like the Arkansas, because the most well-known sharpening stone in the States is called an Arkansas stone. They're fantastic. I've just never once used them very successfully when it comes to my sharpening skills. This was the game changer for me. I got to a place in my life where I realized I could have more knives, or I could just keep the ones I have and be content with them and learn how to hone them to a scary sharp edge. And I found so much satisfaction when I discovered this beauty. This is the Spyderco Sharp Maker Triangle. The Spyderco Triangle Sharp Maker. It's a lot of words to remember, but thankfully you could just screenshot this now or something. This thing is absolutely the best knife sharpener I've ever personally used on a regular basis. There's like two in that category. I have another one that's a belt sander, a Ken Onion sharpener. I'll show that in a different video when I talk about re-edging things with rapidity. Sometimes these are ground so terribly and unevenly that you're going to spend months trying to sharpen a knife. I actually mean that. Your hand, most likely, is not used to doing this 15,000 times. And so you might need to take a break and go back to it because you're so frustrated that it's taking so long. But diligence pays off in orders of magnitude, because once you get a knife super sharp, if you maintain it well, you never have to go back and do the old unfunsies of putting in endless hours of hand sharpening. I still think hand sharpening, even if you have to re-edge a knife entirely, is way better than using the sanders. The sanders can get costly, but I'll get to that in another video. This is the Sharp Maker. This thing is so fancy. It comes in a nice little case. And inside this case, you just open it up, set this aside. You're going to need it later. Nice little lid. And within, they fall out a lot. So careful. That's definitely one of the drawbacks on this. We'll talk other drawbacks. I'm going to be playing with you. These stones can fall out and they are very hard. And very hard means they can also be extremely brittle and fragile. And they're long pieces of ceramic stones artificially created and shaped into a beautiful little pattern to fit inside this wondrous little treasure that we have here. But if you drop this thing, you're going to break this thing. And I've done it. And they're not cheap exactly. They're not really expensive, but they're definitely expensive enough when you drop them and you're just devastated. So be mindful of that when you open these. But inside, you're going to find little stones. These little stones, brown ones and white ones. Okay? Medium grit, meaning they're kind of aggressive, moderately aggressive. The aggression is all that matters when it comes to how quickly you can sharpen your knife or how much metal and material it actually takes off with every little swipe. These are fine. Aren't they fine? I think they're beautiful and lovely. And you will too once you sharpen your knife with these. Check this out. I also have, in this case, more. Yes. The one, if you just were to order this tomorrow, it's going to come with two of them. These ones, medium and fine. And you know what? That's just fine. Probably all you're ever going to need. But this in here is my goodie bag, where I have even grittier stones and even finer stones. These make my edge like uncomfortably sharp. Mirror finish, one could argue. And that's incredible if you need to shave your neck meat. You might. But it's pretty impressive when you can shave with your pocket knife, as well as carve open a chicken and eat a delicious piece of fruit. So because of that, we're going to just start out, though, with the basic ones that you get. So these ones have many faces, right? They're triangles. They have lots of faces. And this has many little holes. Oh, should also talk about these little brass pieces. These are brass safety rods. You're going to see why that's really important when you do a repetitive task for hours on end. You're liable to make a mistake. And when you make a mistake with this, it could cut tendons. And we've talked about tendons. No more need for tendon talk. Guard your tendons. They're important. It's like a web inside your body. And your pinky toe can affect your pointer finger. Actually. So get it right. Don't screw that up. Not even once. You may not have a surgeon available ever again. Besides the great physician, he's always available and on call. Humble, broken, contrite spirit. That's all you need. But the edges. Edges on knives come in different angles. This thing has even pictographic language in case you don't want to read. It shows you different angles. And these are, inverse angles. Ooh. These have different degrees, 30 degrees, 30 degrees right here, back bevel, they'll call it, and then a 40-degree edge. And what that means is just kind of the difference between the two adds up to 40 degrees. So it's really a 20-degree edge on each side, and then or a 15-degree edge on each side. I generally stick with the 40-degree edge. If I really want to refine my edge and shave those shoulders that are along the edge, I do it by going back to the 30-degree back bevel, and then I come over to the 40-degree. But I'm getting a little ahead of myself. I probably should have just mentioned the basics of knives have an edge kind of shaped like this, and then a little finer edge, sometimes shaped like this. But they can have all kinds of different grinds because people at the factory or said machines which make knives now, they're not always so even-keeled about their work. You wouldn't be either if you did a repetitive task all day long. It's hard to make a knife right. Be patient with people that do it wrongly a little bit, right at the end. But knives have all of this shoulder area behind them. I think maybe ricotta, the unsharpened portion of the blade that's here. And then it suddenly goes down. Oh, right there to a bevel. The bevel is where it, well, I guess the grind line. I'm getting my knife terminology probably just terribly wrong right now, so don't permanently quote me on this like forever. But anyways, there's an edge down here, and it's got different kinds of angles. Sometimes you get it from the factory, and it's like this. I'm serious. It's awful. But sometimes it literally is like that. And you're going to look at it when you start to try to sharpen it, and you're going to be like, wow, one side is sharpening so easily. It looks amazing. I can't even wait to cut something. What's wrong with the other side? What do you mean I'm not even starting to get to the edge? Because, like with this guy, we'll see. I'm going to try for it, folks. I don't quite have the best technology and lighting available to make this video perfect. But that edge right there, oh, shing, shing. You see how it's doing that? Well, then there's an even finer edge. Let's see if I can get that. There's an even finer edge. That's actually the cutting edge. The first shing you saw, that's kind of the back shoulder, the back bevel portion of it. That's what builds up the edge. But the real edge is just the tiniest little bit all the way down at the end. That is what you're trying to sharpen. But sometimes when it's uneven and it's like this, you can't even reach that fine edge. Oh, see, be careful. I'm a little rowdy. I'm all hopped up on excitement and enthusiasm. This can't even reach sometimes that edge. So because of that, you're going to spend a long time trying to get that shoulder back even, so then you can access the edge and really put the edge on it. That's where all the work comes in sometimes. So needless to say, you have these wonderful pieces with different grind holes on them. Sorry, I'm doing this from my knees. I've never handled this sharp maker from my knees, but I think we're going to be okay. But you just start out by putting the handy dandy lid back onto the back of it. So then you have it like this. Then you have your safety rods. They have little holes perfectly made into them where those sit into. And it's brass, so that way it's softer than your hardened steel. And so if you cut into it, which you will, because it's going to happen inevitably. So keep your safety on until you're ready to press firmly to the rear. Then, when you do, you won't cut your tendons. But you start out with coarser grain. Coarser grain first takes off more metal faster. So you can go up to the big guns. But if you're just starting with the kit, you're going to come with these, which is generally fine. You don't need them necessarily. But they go in at an angle. Triangle. They start out this way, and then as we progress to the next level, they go that way. And once they go that way, you're off to the races, son. Be prepared, because things are going to get good, because you're about to earn an upgrade. But we start out, and it's all about the beginning stages. Maybe I'll start with one. Difficult to open folding knives, but tried and true and in a lot of your pockets. Ready? Check this out. Paper. See that? There's an area on that knife that does cut, but then there's a whole lot of area on that blade that doesn't really cut. That's because that edge has some catches. It's really catchy. Not in like the beep bop song way, like in the, that's how you cut your hand way, right? Sharpen your knife, because a dull knife is a dangerous knife. You see that oblong cut that just took off there to the races? That was literally the opposite direction I wanted to go, bro. And now I've got tendon problems. So, sharpener, here, before us, semi-soft steel. I don't even know if they don't even tell you what kind of steel it is with these. But it's Swiss made, so it's foundationally wonderful. All right. I'm going to try to do this from my knees. And if I have to stand up, well, it's just going to happen that way. So you start out with a perpendicular angle, okay? All you got to do, instead of like all the sharpening stones out there where you're going flat and along and you got to keep your hand at that just right angle, I'm no good for repetitive tasks at precise angles, except for up and down. That's pretty straightforward. I envision it like I'm about to slice a tomato. Swing, just like that. I'm going to go straight up from the top here, and I go to the heel of the knife. So this has that little unsharpened portion called the choil. Oh, fantastic. What that means is I can basically start the sharpening process right at the heel, right at that little nub. And then I'm going to draw the knife perpendicularly all the way down from the top. to the bottom, or to the tip, I guess. Heel to tip. Whew. And if you hear, you might even be able to hear that with my microphone. Some of those areas, a little smoother. Ugh. And then some of those areas are uncomfortably gritty. Well, what that means is that some of those catches and burrs and chunks that are in the edge are a little bit built up in certain sections of the blade. But because of that, I'm able to slide it along this medium grit and get it to go all the way from the beginning to end, evening out the metal. See, this one's ground somewhat evenly, so I think it's going to be a pretty easy day. That being said, I'm probably still going to pause the video on occasion and just awkwardly edit out me just doing this sometimes for 10, 15, 20 minutes. But I'm going to try to start out with mostly easy knives to work on. But I've spent hours here, guys. Hours and hours and hours at this stage right here, trying to even out each side. But all you do is you keep your knife straight up and down, go straight from the heel to the tip, over and over and over. And one limitation and drawback to this sharpening method is that you can, when you're finishing and going down, you can kind of roll the tip off the edge of it and do that a little bit. Just, maybe I'll just show you this way. As you go down, you see if you do this at the end, if you finish with that, you're gonna roll that tip. You're going to roll that tip and blunt it terribly. But I grind my knives. I grind tips back onto them. I accommodate my own failure to maintain a precise level of accuracy in this task by just sanding it sharp again off the tip. But some guys are never going to do that, so I understand. So all you do, give it a few passes on each side, and you're literally going to be able to feel it. It's quite fascinating. I bet you didn't know you could feel how much damage your knife has endured over its course of its lifetime, but you really can. If you just set it to a stone, you can feel suddenly it gets smoother and smoother and smoother. Like this left side here, getting wonderfully smooth and even. But that right side still's got that gritty gander down on the right other side. So because of that, I've got to spend a little bit longer on the other side. So I'm going to pause and we'll catch up with you later. I made an executive decision to not totally re-edge this knife while you all are watching and waiting to see how that goes, but I've already moderately improved it in about 2.5 minutes. So, let's see. Better, but still got a catchy area. It's that catchy area I'm not going to spend too much longer on, because otherwise I would just go to my Sorry, it's not like super well-made case. I just carved it out of a piece of foam. A friend gave it to me. I would just switch to my diamond edge. They have diamond bits inside these. Cubic zirconium, I should say. This is industrial diamonds that they incoat into a nickel steel alloy here. And that helps to take off metal so much faster. So much faster. And these are awesome. But they make an even better one, I think, which is CBN, carbide boron nitrate, or some nitrate maybe. I would recommend those. If you're going to get one that you can actually re-edge a knife much more rapidly, I would recommend that one, the CBN stones. Not so much the diamond grits. They lose their diamonds. Because diamonds are not forever. They lied to you. De Beers is a corrupt family that's just blood money. Anyways, I get distracted. De Beers. Think about it. It's a false scarcity. False scarcity. There's way more diamonds. They're as common as topaz. Did you know that? Diamonds are as common as topaz. Topaz is like $5.99 at Walmart. But diamonds are like $1,599. Yeah, that's false scarcity. Anyways, I get distracted. Knives. Back to knives. This one has those rare industrial diamonds inside it. But if you sharpen too hard, they come out. And I sharpen too hard sometimes. I get excited and it feels good. So I push hard and the diamonds fall out. I think they'll replace them. I've heard rumors. I can't personally attest to that because it's hard for me to admit that I've made a terrible mistake and sharpened too aggressively. But I'm going to go to a knife that I've already re-edged and put edge is on beautifully. But this one I've been using for about 5 days and somewhat moderately aggressively. I've chopped branches of trees off with this and a lot of cardboard. And any of you who use cardboard with your knife know that it dulls your knife like sandpaper, because it is. You can use cardboard to sharpen your knife, or to dull it very aggressively. So because of that, I'm just going to do a quick few passes on my brownstones. Boom. You hear some grittiness there. Here's some grittiness. But then, once I've gotten to a place where that grittiness is gone, oh, just a few quick sweeps. Ah, wonderful. That medium grit finishes off really quickly. Then all I got to do, turn it flat side, which is not going to take off as much material as the first way. I got to stand up. I'm sorry. I've never done this. Ah, that's better. Okay, so if you notice, nowhere near as much noise coming off of this thing. And that's because it's not grinding into my steel near as much as it was before. This is almost a way that we finish it up just a little bit more. So we're refining that. Oh, there's a little area if you hear, but then it smooths out. So that's because there's a little wonky dory right there on my edge. It's right at the beginning, and I just realized it's some kind of tape. Dang it. If you're gonna clean your knife with your pants, away from your body. Never towards yourself, son. Remember we talked about inner loins. Really important arteries and veins in there. Don't do it. So if you got to use your pantsies, if you got to use your pants to clean your knife, away every time. Away. Away. Never edge in. Okay? Anyways, real quick. Oh, much better. Get that tape off of there. So once I've gone to that stage, I'm clear to go to level 2. Oh, sweet goodness. Extra fine stones. And the fine stones really are super fine. Super fine. It's so amazing. And if you notice, it kind of sounds like they're gritty again. That's because for this one, they really are gritty again. The fine stones are able to start to grab onto any of the more fine particulate matter that's still left on that edge, and they're going to start to hone it right off. Oh, and it starts to get quieter, and it feels like there's less sand between you and the knife edge. And once you start to get to that level, oh yeah, we're almost there. We're almost there, folks. Once you're at that level, you advance another level to the next degree. Oh, okay. And this is one of my favorite sides, right here. I like this side. This is the side for me that tells me I'm just about to accomplish my daily chore. Because sharpening your edge should be almost a daily chore. I actually mean that. You know, you should sharpen your sword every single day. Should we do a little lesson on sharpening swords? Just a little one? Well, I guess they're never little. But sharpening is a daily discipline. It's required. Because if you use it every day, you're going to lose it if you don't sharpen it. Really. You don't have to sharpen every day, but you can maintain it every day. It's like daily disciplines of spiritual things. Feeding your soul and your spirit every single day. Just darn near more important than anything you could ever do. So maybe you should have a discipline of getting up an hour before you have to get up. Read your scriptures, journal, actually write with your own hands about what it is that's going on in your life or the lives of the people around you. Because you do live in tumultuous times. And it may be only for a little while, or it may be forever, to the end of it all. Seriously, write something down with your hands and then use a knife. Anyways, I digress. But once you're kind of through these stages, you know what's so fun? You're going to pick up a piece of paper and cut it in front of your face. Oh, that was cool. I'm really glad that worked out well. You know, you never have to try, but fantastical, right? Now, wait. You thought that was impressive? I'm going to show you how to get super fine, because these are even better. I really do recommend all of them. I can't say it enough. You're going to get into this, and if you get one of these, go find it on eBay or something. Find some guy that never used it because it required discipline. Find somebody else who's selling this thing on eBay or something. Get yourself a knife sharpener. Sell a gun. If you have 5 of them, go sell 1 of them. You can't carry enough bullets to feed it on your person very long. Never hungry. All you got to do is sharpen it, and it will serve you all your days. Way better. Sell a gun, buy a knife sharpener, and use it. Anyways, the superfine stones give you options that just few things you can even imagine. Now listen, there's still some grittiness on there. There's still grittiness. The superfine stones, are going to hunt all your grittiness right down and smash it in the face and leave you shiny, shimmering, and splendid. They're wonderful. They're needed in your life. This is how you take your already. Okay. If you just use these brown and white stones, they will give you a sharper edge than you've probably ever held in your life. Really. Not even kidding a little bit. You've probably never held a super sharp knife, except for maybe a brand new one you just bought and they happen to have ground it really well. Most people have never actually held or used a really sharp knife. And it's a game changer. So go change some games by getting a knife sharpener. Once you get to these superfine stones, though, if you advance yourself a level and get these superfine stones, oh my gosh, the world is at your beck and call, because you suddenly have the ability to cut things like a tomato with that shockingly good edge. Oh my gosh. When you put a see that? You can see that mirror finish from your face to mine. It's amazing. That comes right along this finishing process. These are super fine grit stones, like 5,000, which is some kind of measurement of some kind of factor of grittiness. 0 or double-aught buckshot, or double-aught, double-zero grit. Really coarse, very aggressive, all the way up to super fine. And then there's like 5,000, 10,000, 25,000. That's like almost just polishing. That's just more so what it's for. But because of that, let's pick up another piece of paper. Another piece of paper, right? Oh, bound up a little bit there. Oh, sorry. Not quite demonstrating the way I want to. Maybe just try another piece. Let's see. There we go. There we go. So, you get the point. It's super sharp. Ready? Hair popping sharp. Don't do this unless you've practiced it at least a few times. Because I watched a guy at a gun show. At a place where firearms were sold in a specific manner. At a gun show, it's okay. You can go to those. Don't be shy. At a gun show is generally where you find guys that sharpen knives. Because pretty much all you bros never sharpen your knives. It's good. Because there's a guy there who will sharpen it. Or a gal. And they do an amazing job. But this guy brought in a Roman gladius. If you don't know what a Roman gladius is, it's okay. It's just one of the most efficient tools that was ever devised in the history of mankind for conquering, enforcing. It's still what makes America great, in a sense. By that I mean just New Rome, which has set itself up in New Rome on the Potomac. Anyways, I digress. If you didn't know what a wonderful gladius is, sharp sword about the length of a cubit, right? We talked about that in the other video. The length of your arm, about that size. Double points, like a diamond. Really good for piercing and penetrating armor or just soft fleshy bits. This guy brings in a Roman gladius to have it sharpened by this guy. And I'll tell you what, that man honed a scary edge on it. A really scary edge, because he had a knife grinding sharpening wheel that was like this big, and then he had 2 or 3 of those, and he seriously worked that knife. That guy then walked up and said, I've been eating some of those rum-filled cookies that they sell next door. And I'm serious. They had a gun show with all kinds of liquor and bust treats, knife sharpening table, more firearms, ammunition, less lethals, all kinds of goodies. It's, what else do you want in your life? I guess for some. That was it. It was a one-stop shop. And this guy just got a little loaded on those muffins. And he was sloppy. Like utterly sloppy at this place. And he takes that gladius, which is a lot bigger than this little knife. And he takes his hand and shoves his forearm right up to it and goes. And that sound of my hair popping off my arm, I don't know if you can see it. Can you see it? Well, yeah, it's pretty much, there's no arm hair there, right? That's going to take like a month and a half to grow back. But that guy uses the gladius to try to do that same little tricky maneuver, and he literally ribbon curls his flesh. Uncomfortable. My wife saw it too, and she's a nurse, and she's seen lots of flesh in all kinds of positions and ways. I don't know if she ever seen a knife, really sharp knife, ribbon curl someone's own arm. But we all did. And then he goes, wow, that sure is sharp. Yep, definitely a way to win a vote. And then he asked the guy who sharpened his knife if he had a Band-Aid. And his table was covered in Band-Aids, as kind of one of those, like, my knives are so sharp, they're going to cut your hand. Yeah, and he goes, you don't need a Band-Aid for that. You need medical attention. And he definitely needed medical attention. But he thought he was too cool for school, so he applied a little tiny Band-Aid on a gaping fillet arm wound and walked away. So, hey, that's a good idea. Don't do what I just did unless you're ready to also fillet your arm if you do it wrong, because some knives are so scary, sharp, they're going to fillet your arm flesh off just by showing them off to your friends. So don't be a doofus. Figure out a way to do that safely. But I think it's really fun and you should try it on occasion. The other thing I need to tell you about this knife sharpener before I go is that it also has this wonderful feature where you can modify it into another kind of transformer. Oh, before I transform this thing, let me show you why it's so important to make sure to guard your hands. Knife, sharp maker, hands. Oh, come on, let's throw these in there. After you do this for about 350 times, it's easy for you to suddenly look at your phone and go, whammy, right? I mean it. I've personally done it. These safety rods have all kinds of dings and scratches. I sharpen full-length swords with this. Don't let your tools be the excuse for you not using them. I sharpen machetes with this and big kitchen knives, like full-size kitchen knives constantly. Entire kitchen sets of knives with these things. And because of that, after a while, you just get distracted and you start chatting it up with broski number 4 and look what happens. Boom, you're right down on your thumb. Just like that, man. And I'm telling you, I've seen it happen with this sharp maker. People cut their thumb tendon space. Not all the way, but that's a really important tendon. If you look, I have a Band-Aid on there, not from a knife cut, but from a tuna can. But there's a nice little tendon on there that actuates this little feature in your life. Yeah, think about that one next time you ever send a text. Thumbsies. Need those tendons. Keep them intact. But those safety rods, really important. One of the best features of this knife sharpener that nobody maybe gives enough press about. But time for transforming. You can also flip this thing over, maintaining your lid, and see. All you old school guys and gals that are like, I need my knife's stones to be flat because I learned from my great-grandfather the way to sharpen a knife. Good for you. My great-grandfather taught me horrible nightmaric things like how to use this for business. Seriously, I wrote a book about it. Not a good idea. Don't live by the sword in a sense, but also learn how to practically use a sword for defense. See what I did there? Well, sharpening stones are like laid flat generally. Some guys hold them in their hand. Maybe the guy who had the Oppenjell and he held his sharpening stone in his hand all the time. And guess what fleshy bit of his hand he almost cut off? There was RV surgery number 2. Well, because of this, you can always sharpen bigger things and you can sharpen harder. If you want to really press hard while you sharpen, you can do it all right here. Isn't that fantastical? Well, the other, last, most fantastical, wondrous thing that this sharp maker does is sharpen scissors. And you use those more often, I think, than most people ever use a knife. And because of that, everybody's scissors you've ever met are dull unless they do what? Cut hair for a living. Yeah, unless they cut hair for a living, nobody sharpens their scissors. And sometimes they sit outside for decades of their life. I'm going to just show you real quick. Diamond stone. 12.5 degree angle. Brilliant. A lot of scissors are set to that. Not all of them, but you can get creative. I sharpened my pruning shears because if you didn't know, I was a master vine dresser for organic tomatoes for a while. I pruned thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of tomato shoots and suckers and vines and stems and trusses. I got all kind of green thummy and just spent 4.5 months of my entire life devoting myself to nothing but tomato growing. I didn't even like tomatoes when I got there, but boy, do I love them now. You need to grow tomatoes. If you're not, get them in the ground, get them starters, get a transplant, go break quarantine so you can get tomato seeds. I may know a seed smuggler or two. They might be able to help get you good seeds. I've got some recommendations, but that's another video. Scissors. Scissors. Different kind of motion here, folks. You can kind of come towards yourself. So these have a pretty more obvious edge, right? You see that? See that? So you got to find the edge with the scissor. And once you find that kind of flush point, oh, there's so much rust. There's actually probably more rust on these than there is metal in a lot of places. But that's okay, because you know it's so worth it? When you resurrect a tool from its place of death and despair and you suddenly bring it back to sharp cutting life, you're going to be proud of that tool. Not only are you going to be proud of it, you're going to use it. Because you know what? Once you use it and it gets dull again, you have confidence because you've learned a whole new skill in your life that will be with you the rest of your life. And then you can suddenly become that person that everybody can depend on to sharpen the knives. And that guy's never out of a job, because everybody needs to carry a knife continually about their person to the best of your ability, and or a pair of really good, sturdy, usable scissors like pruning shears, and learn how to sharpen them with regularity. Because if you do, you suddenly become a needed individual. Every chef, every woman who's ever cooked, every man who's ever sliced open a nice big onion, you're all going to need this skill set. Every one of you, every day, for more or less the rest of your life. And because of that, you see what it's doing there? Oh, look at that. Isn't that marvelous? If you had to pick between the extra stones, get the CBN stones. Get the harder grit stones before you get the super mirror finish, extra fine ones. They have way more practical applications like this, or even lawnmower blades or axes. It's a lot easier to deal with it when you go into when you use your knife and you cut into something like metal and you chip the edge. You have to go back to the diamonds. If you have to go back to the brownstones, you're going to be there a long time to try to deal with an edge that suddenly dips in there. And because of that, these make your life way easier. And I highly recommend you find a way to get the extra grit stones, because then when you have rusty scissors or shears, moderately intimidating. When you have those rusty shears, you can suddenly just fix them immediately or much more readily. So basically, guys and gals, that's what I got for you today. Be diligent about sharpening your knife. And once you do it the right way the first time, you know it's wonderful. You don't have to do it all the way through again. If you just then maintain it, it suddenly continues to provide for you that scary, wonderful, sharp edge. And it's the same thing about your soul. If you put into good practice spiritual and emotional and physical disciplines now, when it's moderately not a big deal or bad things happening, it's totally going to show up in orders of magnitude more so later. So set a good foundation, set a good edge, and then maintain it. I generally only have to maintain with my superfine. And because of that, my day is fly. I hope your day gets fly. Go check yourself out a good knife sharpener. There's other ones out there. This is just the one I'm a fan of, and that's the practical reasons why. They tend to run about $70 a pop. The extra stones can be anywhere from $34 to $60 for a set. Not super cheap, but well worth your lifetime of use. I have a lifetime of use in these. I've sharpened easily 800 or 900 knives all the way through many times with this. That's fantastic, considering I break a lot of things readily. And these are a little bit broken, but only once. So find a way to get edgy, find a way to stay sharp, stay vigilant out there, because I'm pretty sure he sent us out as sheep among wolves. So be wise as a serpent, gentle and innocent as a dove. But that being said, if you have 2 cloaks, sell one of them, buy a sword, buy a good quality one that's battle ready, if you know what I mean, because the days are evil. But know the one who redeems that which everyone else intended for evil for great good and the saving of many lives. I hope you have a fantastic and most wonderfully impactful day. I'll catch you on the other side.